mosque. In Britain, some of our most notorious serial killers are converting to Islam as a bid to protect themselves by joining the Muslim gangs because they are targeted by other inmates. The same thing was reported on only in March this year with the serial killer Levi Belfield, who apparently joined the biggest Muslim jail gang to impress terrorists. And we have examples of Muslim gangs trying to groom specific prisoners who they consider to be high-status prisoners, such as cop killer Dale Cregan. According to one criminologist and ethnographer, England's prisons are war zones. The violence that now pervades our prisons has not only been in the form of prisoner-on-prisoner assaults, there has also been a large rise in the number of assaults on staff and incidents of prisoner self-harm. The empirical data on these facts is supported by testimonies of prisoners. I've spoken to those who have described how makeshift weapons have become a fact of daily prison life, of how gang turf wars have become a regular feature of the penal landscape, and how drug dealing and usage are commonplace. Reduced staffing levels have been attributed to various factors, including failed drives to recruit new officers. However, underpinning this staffing shortage, which now reached crisis level according to many accounts, is reduced investment in prisons. As early as 2014, prison governors were ordered to cut annual costs by £149 million, and the powerful union, the Prison Officers Association, has said that these cost-cutting measures are the primary reason why vulnerable prisoners are now at greater risk. In March 2016, an ex-prison officer rang in at LBC to speak to James O'Brien, who naturally, thick-headedly decided to simply pretend that this man did not know what he was talking about.
Progressively over the years, it got worse and worse, and there was a massive gang culture happening, and predominantly it became Muslim prisons, if you like, that were causing major problems.
In what way? Talk me through it. Describe it.
Okay, we used to have a special name for Friday. It was, I won't use a swear word, but it was something F Friday. Because no matter what happened in the prison service or the prison I worked at, Muslim prayers would go ahead. Even if there was a shortage of staff, they would close down everything else to ensure that went ahead, because they knew what would happen if it didn't do.
It would kick off if it didn't.
Big time. And if you're going to Muslim service, which some officers didn't want to do, you'd have 140 prisoners going to service and 6 or 7 staff.
Which is, I mean, it's practically kettling. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster.
Basically, yeah, you're going into a chapel which is not built to hold that many people, and the people would be sitting almost next to toilets doing their prayers, which obviously is not good either. Then they decided...
What is the difference between these gangs? And obviously some of the differences are obvious, but in terms of people getting in touch with me to say they were inside in the 70s and the idea of a prison not being run by a gang, or indeed not being essentially dominated by rival gangs, is absurd. It's always been like that. This feels to me to be different. In what way is it different?
They don't seem to have a care about anything. They're quite young. They seem to be younger now. When I was leaving, so the prisoners that were coming in, they had no cares in the world. They didn't care. They wouldn't care about going and throwing hot water and sugar in someone's face. They disrespected them on the street.
But that's not confined to people from an Islamist background or a Muslim background.
But the prisons are becoming more and more, say there's probably 70% of the prisoners would be of Muslim or Islam origin, or wouldn't be, but they would come in and be persuaded by gangs to become that way, as you say, for being protected.
What's the answer then?
That I don't know.
And what about the question of radicalisation?
They tried to disperse the prisons all over the country. They were sending them, and then when they knew they was being moved up north or wherever to try and disperse them, they didn't like it. And then they would kick off again. They'd be kept there until they settle, and then they'd be just trying to disperse them again. But it never seemed to work.
I don't doubt a single syllable of what you've told me. I just want to pin things down a little more with your help in terms of, you know, you told me what you were fearful of happening, what might happen if you did X. Tell me about stuff that did happen.
Staff being taken hostage. Now I've left, I've still got friends who work there who are being assaulted daily. And it's got a lot worse.
And again, you
staff shortages, just the massive. When I, just to go quickly, when I first started, there was, say, 12, 13 staff per house block for the same amount of prisoners, 180 prisoners. When I left, that was down to 7 staff, so you're cutting it by 50%. You can't run it.
Do you see what I'm trying to do, though? What my problem is I'm trying to identify a problem that is specifically Islamist. So staff shortages is going to increase the likelihood of disobedience.
James, you moron, it's the identity of Muslim. It's got so bad that non-Muslim prisoners are setting up non-Muslim gangs to protect themselves from Muslim inmates, with the example gang being reported on by the Daily Mail being called Death Before Dishonour, and there are fears that the gang could lead to existing tensions between Muslims and non-Muslims escalating beyond all control. You can find papers like this online. Muslim prisoners, radicalisation and rehabilitation in British prisons. The paper examines the risk of radicalisation in UK prisons and concludes that prison staff must work on building trust with Muslim prisoners, and de-radicalisation programmes must focus on using religion as a means of tackling the problem of radicalisation among prisoners. That might be helpful if the imams doing the jobs were actually anti-radical, but as we have seen from previous reports, many of them are not. And what's even worse, according to some American prison officials, the Muslim group prayers led to gangs, because the group prayers formed a kind of bonding ritual that brought them all together. A US prison warden says his compliance with a court order mandating high-risk Muslim inmates to hold daily group prayers led to the formation of Muslim gangs and bullying of other inmates. Oliver testified that allowing Muslim prisoners to pray in a group led the prisoners to setting up an inmate-led Muslim gang. The gang shunned other prisoners, forbidding them from joining the group prayer as well as controlling access to food, and laying stake to the meditation room, being used by leaving their prayer rugs and other religious items to the point of intimidating other faith groups from using the room. Oliver testified that a group of Catholic prisoners gave up trying to use the room. They said it was the Muslim room. And back in 2013 in Britain, the Muslim prison population was skyrocketing. I could probably go on, but I think you get the point.